Hi, and welcome to this section of the tutor where we're going to tackle a subject that a lot of people have problems with, but I promise you I'm going to teach it to you and it's going to be easy, and that topic is the topic of division. Specifically, this is what I'm going to call division part 1, where I'm going to kind of introduce division and work some problems, and then later on in another section we're going to get into some more challenging problems. Okay, but right now what you need to remember is that division is not hard, and basically division is going to be the opposite of multiplication. So in order to move and really do well at division, you have to be familiar with what multiplication is. You cannot really do division until you know what multiplication is. So if you don't know that really well, go back to the multiplication section and review that, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about division, and the problems you're going to have are going to look something like this. And I'll explain as we go along here. 6, and there's going to be this symbol here, like this, divided by 3, okay? What this means is 6 divided by 3. What does that really mean? Another way that you'll see this problem written, okay, is kind of like this. You'll have 6 underneath this kind of house looking thing, and then you'll have a 3 here, okay? What does this mean, okay? You're taking 6 and you're dividing into it 3. Well, what it really means is the following. You have 6 balls, okay? 6 balls. That's the 6 here, 6 balls, okay? And what it's really asking you is, how many times can the number 3 be divided into these balls? A better way to say that is, how many groupings of 3 can you chop this thing up into? Let me go ahead and just kind of show you what I'm talking about here. What we have is we have 6, and we're trying to figure out how many times the number 3 will divide into 6, okay? So what it's really asking you is, if I were to group this number into groups of 3, okay, here's a group of 3, and the reason I'm picking 3 is because 3 is in the problem, okay? And then over here you see here's another group of 3, okay? So what it's asking me is, if I take the number 6 and I divide it up into groups of 3, okay, how many groups would I have? That's exactly what division is, okay? You take the number that you're given, okay, and you chop it up into groups of however many you're dividing by, okay? And the question is, how many groups would you have? Well, you see right here, here's one group, okay, and here is another group. So there are 2 groups of 3, okay? So the answer is 2, okay? That is the answer to this problem, 2. The answer is 2, okay? And I'm just showing you, kind of graphically on the board exactly what it really means, and we're going to work a lot of problems and you'll understand it. But basically, in the biggest possible sense, division is you take the number that you're dividing into and you write it down, okay? And this is how many things I have. And then you chop it up into groups of however many you're dividing by, okay? So in this case, I chopped it up into groups of 3. And the question is, how many groups do you have? How many times can 3 be divided in evenly into the number? 1 group of 3, 2 groups of 3. So the answer is 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, if you remember back to my lesson on multiplication, this should seem a little bit familiar, because when I explained multiplication to you, I told you that multiplication is, 3 times 2 gives you 6, for instance. What it's telling you is the first number is how many groups of something do you have. The second number is how many things in each group. And it's a shortcut for addition, right? So when you take 3 times 2, you get 6, okay? Notice that there's a little bit of similarity here. 3 times 2, as you already know, is equal to 6. And I told you before that multiplication means that you have 3 groups of something, and in each group you have 2 things, and when you do this multiplication and you add everything together, you get 6 objects. Here, I'm kind of talking about groups and objects and everything else. What I'm trying to really tell you is that multiplication and division are very, very related to each other, and that's why I told you you need to understand multiplication first, okay? So multiplication and division are kind of opposites of one another, okay? They're basically opposites of one another. You're going to use multiplication in order to solve your division problems, okay? So, what I'm trying to tell you here is that if you know that 3 times 2 is 6, you also know that 6 divided by 3 is going to give you 2. You see, it's very related to each other. You also know that 6 divided by 2 is going to give you the other number, 3. So once you know the multiplication, you already know the division, okay? Because they're the same thing. You see, I've chopped up my number into groups, and I've counted the number of groups, and that's how I'm dividing. I'm doing multiplication backwards, okay? That's what I'm doing. So if I know that 3 times 2 is 6, I know that 6 divided by 3 gives me the other number, 2. And I know that 6 divided by 2 gives me the other number, which is 3, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and use this knowledge and move on. We're going to do a lot of problems. We're going to work up to this. But the thing to remember is you've got to know your multiplication. If you know multiplication, division is not going to be hard, okay? So the next thing I want to do is I want to pick another problem. What if you have 8 divided by 4? Okay, what's the answer? Well, that can also be written in the following way. 8 divided by 4. What you're doing is you have a number, and then you want to chop that number into groups of 4 and figure out how many groups do you have, okay? All right, so another way you can do that is you can say the following, okay? Because multiplication and division are related, you can kind of treat this problem in the following way. You can say 4 times what number equals 8. That is what division is. When you see a problem like this, which most of the time you're going to see it like this, the way you read it is exactly like this. 4 times what gives me 8. And that's why your times tables are very, very important. 4 times what is 8, okay? Just think about it for yourself. You have to think of your times tables. 4 times 1 gives me 4, okay, so that's not it. 4 times 2, thinking to your times tables, gives you 8, okay? So 4 times what number gives you 8? Well, we just said the answer is 2. So the answer is 2, okay? That is the answer to this division problem. 4 times what gives you 8? Well, 2 is the answer, and there you go. Now let me go ahead and show you, now that we have now that you know what the answer is, okay, let me go ahead and show you why it's true. If you take your 8 balls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 balls, that's what you start with, and you're going to divide it up into groups of 4. Okay, here's a group of 4, like this, and here's a group of 4, like this. I've taken my 8 balls and I've divided it up into a group of 4 and a group of 4. Question is, how many groups do you have? How many times can 4 be divided in? Here's one group, here's 2 groups. So the answer is you can do that 2 times. And that is what division is, okay? This is what it is graphically, but in reality, when you're working the problems, all you have to do is you have to say, take this number, 4 times what will give me 8? And the answer in this case was 2. So that's all you have to do, just write 2 down. So if you know your multiplication tables, division is not going to be hard. If you are not so good at your division tables, then you need to practice, because it'll just make everything a lot easier. What if you have 12 divided by 3? Okay, 12 divided by 3. Another way to write this problem is 12, put this division symbol over the top, and you put a 3 out here. So 12 divided by 3, okay? So what this question is asking is, start with this number, 3 times what number is equal to 12? 3 times what number is equal to 12? That is going to be the answer to this problem. 3 times what number is going to be equal to 12, okay? So let's go through our times tables. 3 times 1 gives us 3. So that's not right, because I'm looking for 12, right? 3 times 2 gives us 6. Okay, we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. We're looking for 12, okay? 3 times 3 gives us 9, right, from our times tables. And that's not right, because we're looking for 12. 3 times 4 gives us 12. Bingo, we hit the answer. 3 times 4 gives us 12. So the answer is going to be 4. 3 times what number is 12? 3 times 4 is 12. 4 is the answer, okay? So you can say the answer is equal to 4. Now, I want you to get in the habit right now of putting the answer up above this line here. So we're going to write the answer up there. That's all we're going to do. We can write the answer out down here. We can write the answer over here. We can write the answer over here. But you will see later, you just have to trust me, it's very helpful and it's correct to put the answer up here. So we're just going to write the answer there. So all this means is 3 times 4 gives me 12. That's all it means. 3 times 4 gives me 12. That's all division is, okay? Now that we have the answer, now that you understand what the answer is, let's go ahead and see how to do that by drawing circles, okay? We need to draw 12 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 circles. And we're dividing by 3. So we want to make a group of 3 here. There's a group of 3. I want to make another group of 3 here. Okay. We want to make another group of 3 here. Okay. And we want to make another group of 3 here. So we're dividing by 3. We're making groups of 3. Okay. The question is, how many groups do we have? 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. 4 groups of 3 items. So the answer is 4, which is exactly what we had before. The answer is 4. The answer is 4. Okay, so I'm not going to do this graphical stuff every problem. I just wanted to kind of show you what it means, okay? But in the end, if you know your multiplication tables, you're going to know how to do division. And that's the good news. That's why you have to memorize these multiplication tables. But once you know them, then your problems are going to be easy because really that's all you have to know. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some other problems. What if they give you 9 divided by 3? Okay, 9 divided by 3. First thing we're going to do, just like we do for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and so on, we're going to rewrite the problem into a way that's going to help you, okay? So, we have to put 9 underneath the house here, divided by 3. So whatever you're dividing into goes underneath, whatever you're dividing by goes on the outside, like this, okay? So the question is, okay, 3 times what number is going to give me 9? 3 times what number is going to give you 9? So if you don't remember off the top of your head, that's okay. Just start from the beginning. 3 times 1 gives you 3. That's not right because we're looking for 9. 3 times 2 gives you 6. That's not right because we're looking for 9. 3 times 3 gives you 9, and that's correct, okay? So what we want to do is say 3 times what number gives me 9? 3 times 3 gives me 9. So the answer is 3, okay? The answer is 3, okay? Now, that is the answer. That is the answer. You can circle that. But I'm going to go ahead and show you at this point what to continue to do in your problems to prove to yourself that that is the answer, because as we get farther along, it's going to be very, very important. Just follow along with me and I think you'll understand, okay? Go ahead and take, once you say, okay, 3 times 3 gives me 9, to check it, let's go ahead and check it for ourselves, okay? So let's do that. Let's multiply. 3 times 3, okay, is going to give me 9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write a 9 underneath here. Okay, I'm going to have a 9 underneath there. Because 3 times 3 gives me 9. So I'm going to write that down, and now I'm going to subtract these two numbers. 9 minus 9 gives me 0. Okay? So what I have is I have a remainder, what I'm going to call a remainder of 0. Okay? What that means is I've fully divided everything, okay? It means I started with 9, I divided 3 by 3. And the answer I got was 3, and I had no remainder. That means that there's nothing left over, okay? I divided by 3, and I got the answer of 3. And because of what I did here, I proved to myself that there's nothing left over. In other words, 3 was able to be divided into 9 an even number of times with nothing left over. And that's all it means, okay? So I want you to get in the habit of, once you put what you think the answer is up here, go ahead and multiply and then subtract. And when you get a 0 here, then the remainder is 0, and that means there's nothing left over. Okay? It means there's nothing left over. Okay, let's continue on. You'll see, you'll understand this remainder stuff, and you know, as we go along here. 10 divided by 5. Okay, what would that be? first thing you do is rewrite the problem. You put 10 underneath the house and 5 on the outside because you're dividing by 5. Okay? Question is, 5 times what number will give you 10? Okay? 5 times what number will give you 10? Well, 5 times 1 will give you 5. Well, that's not right because we're looking for 10. Okay? 5 times 2, okay, is going to give you 10, right? And that's what we want. 5 times 2 is going to give us 10. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 2 up here because that's going to be our answer. And notice I'm writing the 2 above the 10 here. I'm not putting it above the 1, I'm putting it above the 0 because we have divided 5 into this entire number, so it's got to go above this rightmost digit here, okay? So 2, we believe that 2 is the answer, okay? Now let's check ourselves, let's make sure. Let's multiply. 2 times 5 gives us what? It gives us 10. So we're going to write 10 down here, okay? Because 5 times 2 gave us 10. And what we're going to do is we're going to subtract these two. 0 minus 0 gives us 0. 1 minus 1 gives us 0. So the remainder, which I'm going to put as an R, is 0. Okay? So the answer to this question is 2. That is the answer to the problem. And there is a remainder of 0. And that just means that when you take 10, you divide by 5, you get the answer of 2, okay? And there's nothing left over. So it was divided in an even number of times with nothing left over, which is good. Okay? So that means that we've gotten the correct answer. Okay? That means that we have gotten the correct answer. Okay? Now we're going to work up in difficulty into the problems here. Okay? And I think you'll find it quite easy as we go along. 15 divided by 3. First thing we need to do is rewrite this in terms of the problem. This is the way we always want to write our division statements here. 15 divided by 3, we're going to change it around, we're going to write it as this. 15 goes under the house and 3 goes on the outside. So just like before, we're trying to figure out 3 times what number, and we're going to put that number right here over the 5, okay, is going to give us 15, okay? What number is that going to be? 3 times what gives us 15? Well, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 5 is 15, okay? 3 times 5 is 15. So 3 times what is 15? 3 times 5 is 15. So we believe that 5 is the answer, but let's go ahead and just make sure, okay? Let's make sure. So let's multiply 3 times 5, and I'll go ahead and do it in another color here. 3 times 5, 15, okay? So I'm going to write it down. We're going to subtract. 15 minus 15, it just gives us 0. Okay, so the remainder is 0. So what this means is we've taken 15, we've divided by 3, and we got the answer of 5. And there's no remainder. So that means that there was nothing left over. Okay? So if we were going to do this one graphically, we would draw 15 circles. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and I'll put one over here for 15. There's 15 circles on the board, and we're going to divide by 3. Here is one group of 3. Here's another group of 3. Here's another group of 3. Here is another group of 3. And here's another group of 3. Okay? 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, 5 groups. 5 groups of 3. And notice that there are no more leftover zeros out here. In other words, all of the zeros I had, I could group them in a group of 3. There's no extra 0 out here, okay, or a ball out there, or whatever we're talking about. There's no extra 0 out here. So that's because the remainder is 0, okay? The remainder is 0. I was able to divide everything up and put it into a group, and I had no more balls left over. So that's why the remainder, remainder means what is left over, is 0. Okay? And a little bit later, we're going to get into some problems where the remainder isn't 0, is whenever you have some things left over. But we're not there yet. Let's say you have 21 and you divide by 7. Okay? First thing you do is you write that there's 21 underneath the house and 7 on the outside of the house. Okay? So, what we're trying to do is we're trying to divide 7 into 21 and we're going to put a number over here, and I'm trying to find out 7 times what number is going to give me 21. 7 times what number is going to give me 21? So let's go to our times tables. 7 times 1 gives you 7, but that's not right because I'm looking for 21. 7 times 2 is going to give you 14, but that's not right because I'm looking for 21. 7 times 3 is going to give us 21. So that's the answer, okay? Because what I'm looking for is 7 times what number gives us 21? 7 times 3, according to our times tables, is going to give us 21, okay? So we think this is the answer, and that's perfectly fine, okay? But let's go ahead and make sure. 3 times 7 is going to give us 21, and I'm going to write it down here, okay? 21 minus 21 gives us 0, okay? So there's a big fat 0. So what this means is the remainder is 0. So if I were to write 21 circles out and I would divide by 7, then I would have 3 groups there, and there would be no balls left over because I'm able to divide in evenly. There's no remainder, okay?